Hi, this is Alejandro, your Spanish tutor, and I wanted to give you a brief overview of my approach to teaching and the principles that guide the process of teaching a language to my students. So I don't really see myself as someone who teaches a language because no one can teach you a language. I see myself more of a language coach who's going to guide you through the process of language learning, which is a long and hard process. So let's start. I'm going to talk about my equipment. I give online lessons, so this is important. Some references I have because nothing I'm going to show you today is my idea, my original idea. I like to learn from other people and model people who are much smarter than me, right? Then we're going to go into some principles of my approach and then to more of a step-by-step process of the language journey we are going to embark together. So when it comes to my equipment, well, I think it's important that technology at least doesn't get in the way of learning in an online lesson, okay? And if it also can add value and help and make the process better than the normal experience, well, then perfect. I invested significant amounts of resources in good quality, in 1080p webcam and professional microphone, and I use good tools to just make the process seamless and efficient and give you the best experience possible. Moving on into my references or my models, as I said, I haven't learned anything of this by myself. I'm not that smart. I prefer to model and look to people that have already figured out all these things and copy them, right? There's a sentence or a quote by Newton that I love. It is, if I sin farther than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants, right? So this is a good way of putting it, right? So first I read books. I read a lot of books, both in language learning, like Fluent Forever, Fluent in 3 months, and just books regarding learning, how it is more efficient to learn. Okay, make a stick mind for numbers, and also I learned some mnemonic devices and ways of approaching knowledge acquisition and language acquisition. And then some people I look up to, like Luca Lampariello, a polyglot that is amazing. His pronunciation is absolutely great. And then the author of Fluent Forever, or even Tim Ferriss with some tricks that can help you in the process of language learning. There are many others that have helped me figure out ways of teaching the language and learning the language that are more efficient. Okay, so let's move on to my approach. So we already know the equipment I use and what my roles model and resources are. So let's go a bit more into my approach. I love this quote too. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn. So this is the principle that will guide everything we do. So I need to involve you. Only if you are involved, you will learn. Okay. So let's start with the first thing. To getting to know you, I need to know who you are and what you are looking for, the way you learn, and I need to understand where you come from and in terms of your learning approach, and know a bit about you, so the rest of the process is suited to your specific needs. Okay? And once I know you a bit more, then we set goals. I make a video only on goal setting for language learning, so it's very important to set good goals. And as I mentioned, watch my entire video on goal setting to know what good goals are. So the European Framework of Reference will be a good starting point to set that long-term goals. And these goals will guide the entire process. They will allow us to know if we are moving into the right direction or not. Okay? More specifically, for goal setting, we will have a document that we will share in which you are going to define the goal, detail the commitments, set the stakes, and we're going to define the tools we're going to use to measure that progress. Okay, perfect. So another principles of my approach before, after getting to know you and setting goals, is the way I tailor my lessons. I follow the flipped classroom model. So that means that you prepare outside the lesson, so you consume the theory knowledge outside the lesson. We practice in the lesson. So basically in the lesson we are going to do things that you cannot do in your own, right? On your own. And then after the lesson we reinforce what we have practiced and also prepare for the next one. So that's the cycle, okay? Now, in our lessons we'll have a lesson document, okay? And this is the outline of it. So on the top we're going to define what the goal of the lesson is, going to review a bit if it's necessary what you have prepared. Then you have the plan of the lesson with the practice we're going to make, and I'm going to also put in there resources to reinforce, okay? And also it's important you to know what's the next step. So what's the next goal for the lesson and how to prepare for that. Also in this document we are going to write every correction we may need, and all the information will be in one Google document. So a more step-by-step approach of my process of learning, right? Let's start dividing that for levels. I work with complete beginners and intermediate students, okay? Once you get to the advanced level, I think it's better, there are better people to help you there. So I specialize in getting from 0 to an independent level. Where to start when you are a complete beginner? Well, I believe pronunciation is essential, okay? Getting your ears to recognize the sounds and your mouth to produce the sounds that are particular to the language. Okay, in the case of Spanish for an English speaker, there are about 6 to 7 sounds that you will need to train to both produce and recognize. And we're going to achieve that with many techniques, but one of them, and the most important of them, is minimal pairs. So 2 pairs of words that differentiate each other only with one sound. Right? We will see that in another video or in the lesson itself. Right? So once we have mastered the pronunciation, we acquire vocabulary. Okay, and acquiring vocabulary is made through sentence mining and creating sentences. Sentences are the context in which words are used, so it's not very useful to learn words in isolated manners because they are not used in an isolated manner, right? And it's important to learn the most frequent vocabulary. Spanish has, I think, above 90,000 entries in the dictionary, right? But a native speaker manages around 15,000, right? So a little bit more than 15%. Not much. An advanced speaker maybe will talk around 8 to 10,000 words. So it's important to learn the more frequent ones. It doesn't make sense to learn estetoscopio before learning médico, right? And then to learn those words is good. It's optional, but I think it's worth it to use mnemonics. We also will see more in depth what that means. And I don't believe grammar is essential for getting to communicate, for getting to a B1 or lower intermediate level. It just slows down the process and makes it more likely for you to quit, right? But some basic structure, it's important to get from the start. Just main ideas, and always those structures will be oriented to communication, and also will be a very small part of the process at the start. So a special mention to vocabulary acquisition, we will do that through flashcards. Okay, I have an entire video series on Anki. I love Anki, I think it's amazing. And using flashcards and spaced repetition is simply the most effective way of memorizing, okay? And also it's important that they are designed not to recognize words, but to test you in an active manner, okay? Also spaced repetition will make the process more efficient because you will see the words at the time you need to see them, okay? Not before, not after. And also Anki will allow us to have great flexibility. So we can test you in many ways. You can test the recognition, you can test putting words in context, you can test comprehension. So I think flashcards are an amazing tool, and I will help you with that too. So you have already gone through the steps of a beginner, and you are now an intermediate. So when you are an intermediate, the focus will be more on conversation, communication, interacting, okay? Not ready yet for complex conversations and spontaneous conversations, maybe more very specific, structured, planned conversations in which the most valuable thing I can give you is feedback, okay? And also resources regarding the conversation. Also, we will move on to where grammar will take a more important place in the process, okay? But again, the theory will be done outside the class, indoor preparation cycle. So, and the lesson will be used to practice that grammar and to put it in context and to make it meaningful, okay? Also, the grammar will be presented to you with an inductive approach. We also will see that more in depth. And then the input method, it's important that you receive input also as a beginner, but when you are a beginner, it's a different kind of input, okay? You are not ready to receive input 100% in Spanish. You are not ready to read articles, so it will be more adapted content, okay? And this time, we have more flexibility. When you are an intermediate, you can receive input from podcasts, from newspapers, from radio, from video, and we're going to take advantage of that. And an especially good approach is to read while listening, right? To have a book with the same audiobook and do both things at the same time. That is an especially good approach to consuming content. Special attention to the conversation when you are an intermediate, okay? We have mentioned that. At the beginning will be more familiar and prepared exchanges, and we move on to more complex topics later on. In our conversations, my goal is that you talk 80% of the time. Okay, that's very important. You can listen to a native speaker everywhere within the internet. You can find podcasts, but it's very likely that your time with me, it's the only time you have to express and to produce all the things that you have been studying. So you will be the one who talks the most. Okay, so in the conversation, a list of vocabulary and videos will introduce the topic to give it some context, and also we can use a conversation to focus on specific grammar concept. Okay, and my approach to correction is flexible. I can adapt to your needs, but it has been shown that correcting people constantly doesn't help in the long term. So I would try to get you to realize your own mistakes by using the silent way approach. So, are you ready? Knowing that, if we want us to work together, I will be delighted to do so, but you have to commit to something. So you have to understand that consistency is very important. So doing one lesson and in 15 days doing nothing, and then doing 2 lessons in a week, then not doing anything for a month, you need to be consistent, okay? And also, you need to work outside the class. You cannot expect to make any progress just with 1 hour of lessons a week, okay? The numbers I give to my students is that for every hour we have of lessons, you need to put 5 in outside the lesson. Okay, and also take an active approach to studying. Those 5 hours cannot be just listening to a podcast while you do the dishes. Okay, they need to be more active. They need to be uncomfortable, especially at the beginning. Okay, so if you can commit to that, I hope to see you in a private lesson. Thank you very much for your time.